Hey guys, happy Saturday. Welcome to Question Authority. And I took a look at was on YouTube and I saw on my feed a video that looked pretty interesting. So let's see. So why don't we just jump right into it? We've got Russel Brand, who is somebody that I find him interesting. He's funny, at least all but the last comedy special. That wasn't great, but the Messiah one, and I think he's hilarious. He's a really good stand-up comedian, and he's been doing political stuff for a really long time. And at first, I watched a lot of it. It was pretty good, just kind of like shitting on news stories, basically. But we have this. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and let's take a look at Mr. Brand. The headline for this is very misleading. Let's see, what is it called? COVID cover-up, new bombshell lab leak report. I would love to hear a new bombshell lab leak report. Let's see what he's got to say.
Seems to suggest that there's been an international cover-up around the origins of the coronavirus, that it did come from a lab, that people in American government and the
Okay, so I see this in my feed, and I think we had an interesting take from someone who challenges authority. Typically, lab leak cover-up. He's going to go ahead and give us some information. There's a new report.
WHO did know about it and chose to conceal it. Why would that be, and what are the implications of something?
So the implications are huge. I'm expecting a new report with facts, and let's see where it goes.
It's significant, globally significant, being concealed. How does it affect our trust in government going forward, and the likelihood of such events happening again? The headline in the Washington Post.
The headline in the Washington Post. So I guess moments like this, they make me realize that I am living in my own little bubble, some sort of bubble. Maybe some of you who are listening to this are in the same bubble. So here we have Russel Brand, who, like I said, he's a good comedian. And I think comedians overall have been doing some of the best work at bringing us news that contradicts mainstream narratives. So I figured Russell would he would have a good take. I haven't listened to him in a while. I had no idea he was going to go to the security state mouthpiece, Washington Post, Jeff Bezos' fucking newspaper. And the bubble, I guess, that I'm in is the bubble of people who watched Bernie's campaign, withstand hit piece after hit piece after hit piece from the Washington Post, trying to take him down because he challenged the national security state, their interests among a lot of other things. So come on, Russell, the fucking Washington Post.
An article by Josh Rogan is new congressional report says COVID-19 likely emerged in Wuhan months earlier than originally thought. That's weird, isn't it? Because by now you've got your own timeline of how it individually and personally affected you, where you were, how you reacted at every phase, the initial excitement around vaccines, concerns around the story. Did it come from a lab? 19 months after the start of the pandemic, the Chinese government continues to actively thwart a real investigation into the origins of COVID.
So there we go. That's their angle. They're not interested in the truth about lab leaks and cover-ups. They are pushing the security state narrative that's popular right now, which is to irritate tensions and do that with China. So it's a huge fail, Russell. But let's see, because maybe they do have some facts. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is a bombshell revelation. So let's watch.
COVID-19. A new GOP congressional report alleges that Beijing was covering up the outbreak for months longer than previously assumed. I suppose what that feeds into is the idea that there is a mainstream dominant narrative and an ulterior narrative that is closer to the truth. Imagine how this plays into the ideas around what...
I guess Russel Brand is not an American, so maybe we can cut him a break. So it's a GOP report. So come on, they're not going to give you anything but the mainstream narrative. Of course they're not, and neither is the Washington Post. And you see here, we got both sides working together. So you got the GOP and you got the shit lib Washington Post, and they're just hand in hand, just working together to prop up the establishment narrative. And that is the Asia pivot. That is tension with China. So this isn't about finding out the truth about COVID. This is a geopolitical spy game propaganda. So, Russell goes on to rant about powerful transnational bodies, blah, 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 stuff that sounds cool for the anti-establishment kids. And then he goes back to his Washington Post article. So, Russell, please just do better, man. Let's try and find it here. So.
Wuhan Institute of Virology, as well as other labs in Wuhan, could have been the source of the outbreak. I mean, we scarcely need to rehash Jon Stewart's.
So let me get this up on the screen because this is really important. And if anybody's reading this stuff, you want to look for this type of language. Their new research focuses on whether the Wuhan Institute of Virology, as well as other labs in Wuhan, could have been the source of the outbreak. There's nothing definitive. We may not ever know where the virus started. We don't know if it was from a bat. We don't know if it was from a lab leak. And the lab leak theory was so controversial several months ago, not very long ago, where you could get banned from Twitter, from YouTube for even talking about it, for even suggesting it. It was medical misinformation. And now we see, of course, Afghanistan. We're pulling out of Afghanistan. That plays a part into this because this all has to do with geopolitical politics. And we have this whole Asia pivot that started way before we pulled out of Afghanistan. China, they have an interest there, of course, just like we do. They have lots of minerals. They have lots of oil. That's what these big geopolitical bodies, these big capitalist governments, they're interested in resources above all else. And this article here, it says, just in Washington Post fashion, insinuate, but you go right up to the line, but don't give any real facts and always cover your ass on the way out, could have been the source of the outbreak. So let's see. Oh, yeah, let me just say, I mean, the wording is always vague. There's always no substance. COVID could have been. So let me just say that we probably didn't, I have not read it. We probably didn't need a 200-page report to come to this conclusion. I can say right now that there could be aliens flying UFOs in the ocean. There could be a man on the moon. So come on.
As well as other labs in Wuhan, could have been the source of the outbreak. I mean, we scarcely need to rehash Jon Stewart's enjoyable analysis of the situation.
I like that. I like Jon Stewart's coming on Stephen Colbert and, going ahead and doing this whole bit that Stephen Colbert really fought against, because Stephen Colbert is probably not very interested in what Jon Stewart's saying so much. I think he's just worried about getting into trouble. He's comfortable where he is. He does not want anything to disturb his place and position. And this is the type of environment now where it's so easy to get canceled. It's so easy to lose. All your public reputation just goes down the fucking drain. And so whether you can blame him or not, I mean, Stephen Colbert has really fallen far as just his ability to generate laughter from me, at least. And just, like Jay Leno doing his talk show. We have another comedian get into the talk show gig and just start to just produce absolute shit, because that's really all those kinds of programs can produce. So some people like it. A lot of people like it. That's why they're so popular. But his rant on the Tonight Show was hilarious. Jon Stewart, for the most part, I find him to be very funny, very insightful, and it's true. I mean, with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, they study coronavirus the first cases show up around this lab, it is very logical to assume that it probably did escape from a lab. But we don't really know. And what the Washington Post is doing is they're not trying to get down to the bottom of it. They're not trying to figure out the truth. They're trying to push this CIA wartime propaganda, this Cold War propaganda, and they're trying to inflame tensions with China. It's very obvious.
The report also presents extensive evidence that the international community may need to revise its timeline of the outbreak. It's our belief that the virus leaked sometime in late August or early September, McCall said in a statement accompanying the release of the report. When they realized what happened, Chinese Communist Party officials and scientists at the WIV began frantically covering up the leak. But their cover-up was too late. The virus was already spreading through the megacity of Wuhan.
Now, I wouldn't put it past these governments, like China or the US, any large capitalist society, to cover up a mistake of these huge proportions. Just logically looking at it, it would not surprise me at all. One, that they play God, and we already know that they do this gain function research. So they're trying to strengthen viruses in the lab so that they can find antibodies. They can find not antibodies, so they can create vaccines for them. So that if they do come up and spread through the world, that these several pharmaceutical companies will get rich off of it. And that's the game. I mean, that's why they're doing that. It's dangerous. They probably shouldn't be playing around with these things. If they did create it in a lab and accidentally escaped, and I wouldn't be surprised that they were incompetent enough to accidentally release it. Those are, two things you always count on when it comes to greed and big, gigantic money-making organizations is greed and incompetence. They seem to go hand in hand. So of course they would cover it up to try and save face. But the thing is, and what I'm still waiting on, is evidence. And I don't think we're going to get the evidence from the Washington Post. I'm sorry, Russell. I appreciate your humor. I like what you're trying to do with political commentary. It is, I guess, very similar to what I'm doing right now. And it's probably a whole lot better. I mean, I think the problem is, though, and maybe it comes along with having money and being a celebrity and being in these circles for such a long time, that you kind of get away from the sort of average person and become more and more insulated into a crowd of liberals, people are well-meaning. Bill Clinton played a saxophone, Democrats. I understand what that is, that type of mentality, but they are sucking down propaganda. It just has a label on it that says okay for democratic voter consumption. And that's what the Washington Post is. It's a piece of trash. They sometimes do good reporting like any other newspaper would do. But for the most part, what they're doing is they're publishing propaganda. And a lot of that propaganda is fed to them directly from the State Department, directly from the CIA. And this has already been talked about. It has already been exposed. This is not a conspiracy theory. And they have to do very little, I'm sure, now in this clickbait world to convince journalists who, for the most part, have absolutely no ethics or morals anymore to release whatever they want them to say. And right now what they want is they want us to be very, very afraid of China. They've wanted us for a very long time to be very, very afraid of Russia. And if you zoom out and you take a look at these things on a big, wide scale, you can see that you've got the United States, the United Nations, and then you have a consolidation of power with Russia and China, potentially Afghanistan. So you have two separate parts of the world kind of consolidating around each other, different countries consolidating around each other to fight for security, to fight for resources. And the US, it is within their interest to promote fear of China, to promote fear of Russia, because at some point they may actually consider military exercises there. And they want us to be on board when they do. All right, guys, have a good night.